guys, welcome back. Sam Terrell, the Northwest Aeronaut, and Happy New Year. It is January 2nd, relatively nice Northwest day. You got beautiful visibility on the clouds. A little bit cloudy, but plenty altitude for the ceilings here. So today we are starting our series on commercial maneuvers, and we're starting it off today with some steep turns, commercial level steep turns. So of course, steep turns, we remember from our private training, they are to get to know the airplane's tendencies for overbanking and how much back pressure is required to hold altitude with steeper bank angles, as well as just getting used to how it feels to have those extra G's in the seat when you're in those steep banks. So commercial level steep turns take it to the next level. We're banking a little bit more steeply, up to 50 degrees, up to 50 degrees, and we are doing the turns in both directions. Now, many people mistake the requirements for steep turns between private and commercial. They think you have to do it in both directions for the private, and in fact, the ACS does not specify that. For the private check ride, you are required to do it in one direction at 45 degrees bank, and then only in the other direction if specified to do so by the examiner. Now, even if the examiner tells you that he or she wants you to do them in both directions, you can stop in between each one, reset, set yourself up, and then do it in the other direction. Whereas with the commercial level steep turns, we are banking more steeply, and we are going straight into the other direction as we roll out of the first one. So it definitely adds a level of complexity and difficulty, and requires a higher mastery of control over your airplane. So I just got through some clearing turns here, and I'm going to make a quick call. West practice area, RV12is Victor Alpha is north of Yam Hill, 4,500 steep turns, west practice. All right, so let's talk about the airspeed we choose for our steep turns. Our airspeed, the ACS says that you are to choose an airspeed not to exceed maneuvering speed. It also says that your airspeed needs to remain consistent, plus or minus 10 knots. So if you have wiggle room of plus or minus 10 knots, but you can't exceed maneuvering speed, what airspeed do you think you should choose? So many students that I work with think that you should choose maneuvering speed and be right at maneuvering speed. But guess what? If you do that and you go 1 knot over, you have technically failed that maneuver and not met the requirements of the ACS. So I choose 10 knots below maneuvering speed. That way, I have the full 10 knots of wiggle room that I'm allotted, and I don't risk going beyond maneuvering speed. The maneuvering speed in our RV here is 90 knots. So I'm going to be around 80 knots here. And when we go into the steep turn, we're going to add a little bit of power because there's quite a bit of drag that's created through the extra lift that's required when you go into that steep bank in order to maintain altitude. Now, steep turns is one of the maneuvers that we kind of switch our normal thinking. Usually we're controlling airspeed with pitch and altitude with power. And yes, I know there's intricacies to that. It's not just a flat blanket statement. But especially for steep turns, we are using our power to control our airspeed and using our pitch to control our altitude. Now, steep turns is a visual maneuver. We need to have our eyes outside, and we need to be looking at that sight picture to maintain altitude. Eyes are only glancing inside every 10 seconds or so to make sure we're still where we want to be airspeed-wise, altitude-wise, and coming around to our heading. But our heading also needs to be a visual reference. So I'm going to use Mount Jefferson here off in the distance, and then I bug the heading
558, just East Chadwick.
After I have my visual reference. Actually, you know what? We'll just use Mount Hood because it's nice and big and beautiful today. Look at that mountain.
3,500, heading northwest, practice.
Sorry for all the radio chatter today. It's a busy day out there. All right, 4,580. We're going to start to the left and then go to the right. Area is clear. We've made our call. And here we go. To the left. Add in that power. Making sure I'm staying coordinated while I do this. Getting over to that 50 degrees of bank. Keeping those eyes outside. And pulling on that stick to hold that back pressure. If I see my altitude going down, I pull back a little more. If I see my airspeed going too high, pull that power back. Here we go, Mount Hood. Rolling out into the right-hand turn. Keeping that nose up. I'm at 90. I don't want to go beyond 90, so I'm going to take some power back as I continue my turn. I'm losing a little bit of altitude, so I'm going to just pitch up a little bit.
We have 317 Victor Alpha inside.
Grove at 3,700, doing steep turns, left practice.
And there's our mountain rolling out. And right at 80, we ended a little low. We did push the limit of our altitude requirement there at 100 feet, but that's okay. As long as you're within limits, that's all right. So the biggest mistake people make is not using rudder when they're rolling in, and especially when they're rolling out of a turn. So make sure you're using that rudder into the turn, and then a lot of right rudder as you're rolling into that right turn. Keep that ball centered throughout the whole maneuver. I hope this has been helpful for you guys. Thanks for joining me today. And until next time, resume your own navigation. See you guys.